I suppose the first thing about it, it should be a great match. Like, if it's anything like the two semi-finals that we had, like which were two classics, weren't they? After a sort of a average enough season.
We've had a couple of classic semi-finals in the last few years, and the final hasn't disappointed for a while either. They've generally been good finals for the last 4 or 5 years. So, and it's hard to see any more than a kick of the ball between the two sides, because they're both very well drilled. McGuinness and Fitzmaurice, both very good managers. So it is hard to see an awful lot between them.
Yeah, I watched Donegal in the National League Division 2 final when Monaghan wiped the floor with them, and there wasn't a lot expected of them this year. After what happened to them last year, people would have thought they were sort of a fading force, whereas Kerry people were almost worried, about their team. They were expecting Cork to roll them in the Munster final.
Kerry were so good in that Munster final. I mean, they were so well set up, and everybody had sort of talked about what a good manager Fitzmaurice was going to be for them. But he sort of proved it that day. The way they were set up, and they just Cork basically ran into a brick wall and didn't know what to do.
Because he took a lot of criticism, or some criticism, for not playing the traditional Kerry way, which is gung-ho attacking football. Like, and obviously he knows that to make the most of his team, he has to get players back, because maybe they don't have the natural full-back type defenders that they had. So he has built a system to compensate for that.
Kerry have adapted massively in the last decade or so, since sort of Tyrone came on the scene. Even Jack O'Connor in his book admitted that they had begun to do the tackling and grips and getting men behind the ball and everything, and at that stage they had to move with it, or else they were going to get left behind. And now they seem to have a good few newly established players this year that nobody had really heard tell of. Even the like of Fionn Fitzgerald and a couple of those lads. And just because we maybe didn't know who they were, didn't mean they were bad footballers.
What about Ryan McHugh then, Irish News Player of the Year? Do you think he'll still have the impact he had? He was man of the match in the Ulster final and man of the match in the semi-final.
Well, he just has no fear. He's just such not a typical modern GA player, where they're also big and bulky and strong, and then you've this whippet coming along, and he's
Kerry's going to have to man mark him, aren't they? I mean, it was criminal what the space Dublin gave.
Dublin gave him the space, and as we've said, Fitzmaurice will never be as naive as Dublin maybe were. Kerry will definitely man mark him. And then you have the Jim McGuinness factor as well, and the magnificent job he has done with Donegal for the last 4 years. To turn them from no hopers in a sense to three out of 4 Ulster champions, winning an All-Ireland, now back in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, Jim McGenius, as they're calling him these days. Like, you can't give him enough credit for what he's done. Like, to get that group of players. It's such a small group. I think he's only used 23 players this year. 16 of them have played in all 5 games. So to get them all to that level of fitness, motivation, and so organised, they just want to go through a brick wall from. And the way he turned things around against Dublin, when it was it was looking as if it was going to get embarrassing for them, just shows that he's got such a grasp of the game and when to introduce players, and how to shuffle his deck, and he, as I say, he deserves massive credit. Like.
So who's going to win it then, Andy?
Well, I'm going to go with slightly. I'm going to give the nod to Donegal. I think the Kerry full back line and the keeper just would worry me, and I think Donegal will just shade it. Like, they'll be massively motivated for the game once again, and but I'm expecting a good game, and I'd say Donegal by a couple of points maybe.
I can't see anything different. I can't see anything other than a Donegal one as well, but no doubt it's going to be a tight game. There'll not be a kick of the ball between the two teams, but as you say, I just think Kerry will maybe not find the same joy out of Donaghy and O'Donoghue as they've got against other teams, and that will probably be the difference.